Hello, and welcome to the Outdoor Entrepreneurs Series. My name is Garrett, or if you found the channel, Some Dude Walking. Now I guess I'm Some Dude Talking again. This is going to be an interview series where I talk to a lot of smaller and startup cottage brands within the backpacking community, as well as some more established brands later on down the line. This is going to be a new weekly series where I sit down and get a peek behind the curtain of what it takes to operate a small business and be successful. After the pandemic, a lot of people lost their jobs or felt employment instability, and because of that, we're seeing a big surge in new startups specific to backpacking, but also in America in general. A lot of people are employing themselves and their own abilities to provide for themselves and their family. So I would like to give a broader platform to that. We're going to be talking about how to scale a business, marketing, how to build out supply chains, how to get into retail stores. So if you've been thinking about starting your own business, but you're not really sure on how to take that next leap, this is going to be a series you definitely want to follow along with. We're going to have new episodes every Monday moving forward. And this first season or first round is going to be very exciting. My first guest of the series is going to be Mark Rushkin of Cloud Gear. Cloud Gear makes Dyneema bear bags and stuff sacks, but they do so much more than that for the community than just providing a product. Mark and I talk about how he stays motivated operating Cloud Gear as a side business while maintaining a full-time job, as well as having 2 daughters, a wife, and a full family to take care of. We get into how he prioritizes his time backpacking while busy with all these other things, and Cloud Gear's mission of giving back to the community and how they prioritize profit donations over just making sales and making money from this. It is very much a humanitarian endeavor as opposed to just strictly business and a money-making one. I'm very excited to talk to Mark. Cloud Gear is based out of North Texas, and if you've watched my channel at all, you know that I try to give back to North Texas, as that's where I'm from, as much as I can, because I personally believe starting at the local level has the greatest impact of change on the national and even global level. So here it is. Here is the interview with Mark Rushkin, lead design of Cloud Gear bags. Hey Mark, thank you so much for being on this series. Would you mind giving everybody a little bit of your background?
Sure. So my name is Mark Rushkin. I am the lead designer at Cloud Gear. We started this business off of an interesting backpacking trip where I had a cool little Dyneema bag that I'd been given as a gift. And I did not hang it up in the tree as I should have overnight. And some raccoons came and stole it from me. And so I got home from that trip and started looking into getting myself a new bag because I really liked it and realized they were expensive and mostly fairly boring. And so I thought I would just order some fabric and make my own. I grew up knowing how to sew. My mom taught me very early on. And so it seemed like a really simple thing to just make my own bag, just ordering a little bit of Dyneema fabric and go at it. So I ordered some and started playing around with it. And I thought it's still kind of boring. I'd like to do something interesting with it. So I started trying to figure out how I could draw on it or print on it or something like that. And it quickly realized that it was something that wasn't really common in the industry. There were a couple of places like Ripstop by the Roll will allow you to order some pre-printed things, but I wanted to be able to make some fun presents for friends and things like that. So I started really trying to investigate how you would print on Dyneema. I finally figured it out and made myself a couple of bags, and my wife and I started kind of talking through all the money I had spent on the equipment to print on the Dyneema. And she said, we should probably figure out a way to recover some of that. So we started to, make some for friends of friends for some, just the cost of the materials and to try to recoup some of the cost of the equipment. And slowly that expanded and then it started expanding very quickly. And then suddenly it seemed like it was turning into a real business. So we decided that we would turn it into a real business. It's not something that either of us really intended to do full time or that we ever intend to do full time, but it's been really fun working with each other on this and working with our kids and kind of showing them how to run a business and how to do customer service and giving them the opportunity to really feel like they're doing something to contribute a little bit. So On some level, this is still more hobby to us than actual business, and we like it that way. Um, we don't think that we'll ever probably grow much beyond just the four of us. We may outsource a couple of small things just to take care of some of the things that we don't as much like to do. But overall, we think it's a fun thing to do. We really enjoy sending people stuff and getting the feedback from them about how much they like the things that we've given them. So that piece of surprising and delighting people is the thing that excites us the most about the business. And so that's sort of the background of me and how we got to where we are today.
And so, what year did you guys start selling beyond to just your friends or friends of friends?
So it's been almost exactly a year since we sold our first bag to someone that we didn't know. It was right before Christmas of last year that somebody reached out and asked if they could buy 4 or 5 bags for a set of Christmas presents that they wanted to give out.
So you guys do everything in-house. I've seen some of the posts of CAD on the sewing machine, the new stickers on the sewing machine, which is always nice to see. So do you all split your time in production, or do you divide your roles pretty stringently, or just everyone kind of helps out where they can when they can?
There's different things that each of us are a little better at and enjoy more. The big industrial sewing machine that we have, it's usually me that's using it. And some of the real detailed sewing work is usually me. But the bulk of the work is actually Amanda at this point. So a lot of the design work is the stuff that I'll do. So figuring out how to actually get the images that people send us to fit the bags correctly and figuring out how to place it so it looks nicest. And some of the standard designs that we do, a lot of that comes from design work that I do or photographs that I take when I'm out backpacking. But the bulk of the actual day-to-day is Amanda.
Nice. So what would you say the ethos of Cloud Gear is?
It's a good question. Something that we really pride ourselves in is doing something that's unique and special. This is not a primary source of income for either of us. So we try to keep costs really low because we really like the community that is the outdoor community. And so we want to use this as a way to give back to that community. So what little profit we make, we send a lot of it off to other charities, Unfilter the Outdoors and things like that. We're very excited about the opportunity to help diversify and to support outdoor spaces. And so it's something that we care about a lot. This is something that we think is a fun hobby for us as a family. And so, we kind of take this thing that we enjoy and figure out a way to use it to give back to the thing that we enjoy.
That's great. Yeah, there's a lot of new charities popping up that are specific to diversifying the outdoors. I mean, I think it's a great initiative. My wife and I just finished hiking the PCT recently, and I could probably count on one hand the number of people of color that I saw. So, I think it's a big cultural shift that needs to happen not only in America in general, but it's kind of permeating into subcultures. So I think it's great that a company can put its money where its mouth is and better support those types of initiatives.
Yeah, and it's great to see. I think largely the industry, at least the small businesses in the industry, most are really doing something in that space. We're close with Liv and Jen over at All Man's Right, and their People Planet Promise. It was one of the things that we modeled how we do our charitable giving after, where they give 2% of any of their profits to charities that diversify or support outdoor spaces. And so we thought that was a great idea. And then, obviously the work that we do with Garage Grown Gear, they've been very focused on those kinds of charities as well, and have introduced us to some of those great charities. And then when we find people that are doing interesting things in the industry, people like Echo, who hiked the PCT this year as well.
Yeah, she was part of our original Tramley on the PCT. We hiked about 500 miles with her.
That's fantastic. So we found her on Instagram, and it was just, I think she had one picture on Instagram and just a little tagline that was in there about, intending to hike the PCT waste free. Mm-hmm. Those are the kinds of things that we get excited about. So we reached out and we said, what can we do to support you? And she was like, I don't want to I don't want new things, and so I'm not sure what you can do to support me. And we said, well, we have a whole bunch of stuff that we mess up because we mess
Yeah.
up a lot when we're making bags. So, instead of these things going into the trash, let us just kind of finish up some of these mess ups and send them over to you. And then, we're actually avoiding some of the stuff ending up in the landfill, and you get, what you need to be able to do your through hike. So we love to find things like that and to find people that are doing interesting things associated with diversifying the outdoors, or to, actually improve outdoor spaces for the people that are using them,
Mhm.
and do what we can to support them. Mostly that's through, just giving money or sending equipment, but it's fun. It helps
Yeah.
us be a part of it.
Do you think that helps you stay motivated? You mentioned before that this was not strictly a profit-seeking endeavor. Do you think that being able to give back helps you kind of stay on track and stay motivated with a side gig while you're handling all these other things like a full-time job and family?
For sure, there's no doubt. So I mean, when you're sewing the same bag over and over and over and over again, it can be kind of wearing. And we've actually talked before about, at what point does this hobby become too much work and distract from being able to spend the time we want with our kids and go off and do the things we want to do. And so we're very conscious of that, of trying to walk that line carefully, of not getting too big, not selling too much to where we're really having to focus too much of our effort on it. And then where we are actually kind of doing some of those tedious tasks that are associated with it, knowing the output of what we get to do with it is absolutely the thing that keeps driving us forward. One of the things I love the most is actually the custom work that we do. So people send us pictures, we print them on bags, and we send them back. And so often those pictures are just incredibly deeply meaningful to people. And so the responses that we get back when we send the bags to them, I mean, these are, people's pets, people's friends, their relatives, people in pictures, and feelings, and things that they want to have with them on the trail. And then they get this thing, and hear people, going off to hike for months at a time. And now they have this one thing that's special to them, that connects them to a feeling, or a motivator that drives them forward. And to know that that is something that we're contributing to, it's just so incredibly exciting to us.
That's awesome. Let's go ahead and use that as a segue and talk about the marketing a little bit. I don't want to phrase this as, oh, that's beneficial for your brand, but in a way it kind of is. Um, what's been your perspective on how things have transpired in the past year, and how have you guys gotten the word out? It seems like what you're doing is kind of permeated within the community quite a bit, and you've been able to scale a pretty broad customer base in that short amount of time.
Yeah, as best I can, it's actually been a little surprising, to both of us. Amanda and I, neither of us are marketers by trade. I'm a technologist, and so kind of going into this, we weren't really sure what to do. And again, we weren't really trying to grow significantly, so we weren't putting a ton of effort into marketing. And really, what seemed to happen is, we got a couple of these custom orders, and people get so excited about the custom stuff that we send them, that they start posting about it, they start telling people about it. And so I think you could probably draw a line from the first person we sent a custom order to every other person that we've ever sent an order to, because somehow it has been that word of mouth, that connection back to the last thing that somebody saw, or somebody posted about, that, when you see that kind of response from your customers, that they kind of drive other customers towards you. And so that's been big. No doubt the partnership with Garage Grown Gear has been absolutely huge as well. They do so much in the community for small makers. They help you, they give you advice on how to improve the materials that you're using, give you advice on improving your products. They help with giveaways and things like that drive people to your Instagram. So no doubt that's been a huge part of it as well. But I think probably the biggest thing is just making sure that when we send something to somebody, that it really is something that they're going to be excited to have, and then seeing that they turn around and tell other people about it. And when we ever do have people that have problems with the gear, which does happen every once in a while, a stitch will come loose, or you'll have, something that just isn't what somebody expected, we respond to that in the best way that we possibly can. And a great example of that is somebody pulled one of our bear bags up into a tree on the Appalachian Trail, and the stitching actually gave way, and the hang tab pulled off. And they not only lost the use of the bag, but they actually lost their bear cord up in the tree as well.
Right.
Sent us an email and said, I've had this thing for 3 weeks. I expected it to be better than this. And our response was, of course, we expected it to be better than that as well. So let us send you a new one. By the way, if we're going to send you a new one, can we customize it for you? Can we put a picture of it, of something that you care about on it? And they sent us a picture of the dog that they had used to hike with, that they had wanted, to kind of have as a remembrance with them. And so we put a picture on a bag for them, sent it to them on trail, and filled it with some food to sort of satisfy some hiker hunger, and some new bear cord as well. And I think that you only really do that if you care about the people that you're selling to.
For sure.
And I think that's an important part of how we've continued to build the customer base, is that we really do care about what we're doing. We care about what we're delivering. And if we didn't, we probably would stop, because it's too much work otherwise.
Yeah, that's great. And I do kind of want to touch on the customization aspect of your brand. Although it's not, necessarily unique to Cloud Gear, you do seem to have more reverence than some other brands within the community for the customizable DCF bags. Can you kind of talk about what you think you offer and what the appeal is to your consumer base over someone that might offer a similar product?
I think the reality is some of it is price, some of it is just the style that we have. The biggest thing that I try to add as a value add there is that it's not just have somebody send us a picture and we slap it on the bag and send it to them. We go back and forth, often 5 or 6 emails back and forth about, hey, I think I should crop it this way. This will make it look good. Talking about the materials, explaining why one material will look better with a design than the other. We often send mock-ups of what the bag will look like. And if we're really not sure, we'll actually print the bag and then take a picture of the printed fabric and send it back and say, this is what it's going to look like when we assemble it. Is this really what you're looking for? And so it's a lot of that personal touch, really making sure that what we end up sending somebody is something that they're really, really excited about.
Yeah, I think that goes a long way, obviously, and especially with customer retention and referrals. I mean, so many of these smaller businesses that I've talked to, especially, Instagram is a great leveraging tool to get your brand out, but there's
Yeah.
no real brand trust unless, you kind of talked about some of your design, and I think the logo is cool. I think it resonates with a lot of people, especially I think you've captured underrepresented audience with rainbow flag support, and even to go as far as putting it in your actual design, your brand logo. So I think you're really touching on something that the community has needed for a long time, and just within that, brand awareness is kind of creating brand trust just with your logo. So yeah, I think
Yeah.
since you guys are clearly motivated by how can you help others instead of how many sales can we make, it's kind of permeating a lot more. People are a little over this whole capitalism thing, and it's a reality of the world that we live in, but there can also be humanity tied to it. And so whenever you're able to support a community that supports you, create a more inclusive space and an otherwise kind of gatekeeping area, it's usually just older bearded white guys that are out there, and now there's a large influx of diversity that's coming in. And I've seen online discussions or online content, whether it's sincere or not, where that is a pressure that's being felt by the old guard, and they don't really, it's just kind of, it's not healthy discussion.
Yeah.
So I want to commend you guys for giving a space for that.
just as a side comment on that, it's funny, the rainbow logos and the rainbow bags that we print. We weren't even really we weren't aware of what we were getting into when we did that. We have some good friends, and some good friends who have kids who are really finding out about their sexuality as they're starting to hit those ages where those things really solidify in your mind. And it's important to us to be supportive of those people, and to really show through all of the things that we're doing that we support the people around us who are, these are people that are really dealing with things that those of us who haven't had to question our own sexuality or haven't had to question our own gender at some point can often not really even begin to understand. So we did it as a way to show some support, but we had no idea the response that it would bring. I mean, the rainbow bag we've sold more of those than we've sold of all of the other bags that we have combined.
Right.
And to see that the community has been so hungry for that, and that nobody's really responding to it, has been really shocking to us. And the responses that we've gotten around it, some of the messages that people have sent us about what it means to be able to show that, and even people who are buying it just to show that they're an ally, it's been really incredible to see. And so we took that and said, what can we do that's really going to help with this even more? And so we started thinking about how can we really make sure that our brand is really open to people, and really responsive to the fact that the industry is so hungry for this, and that the people who are out in the outdoors and backpacking are so hungry to be able to show their pride and to be able to show their allyship. And so that's where the idea for the change of the logo came. We've got a couple more things in the works. Actually, we want to do a transgender flag. We wanted to do for National Transgender Awareness Day, but we missed the mark on that one. So we're planning on doing that going forward. And the intention is to just offer it we'll sell it, and all the profits will go to one of the charities that we support locally, because that's one of those things we don't really want to profit off of, but we do want to make sure that it's available for people, and that people can start to really find ways to connect what they're doing to who they are.
For sure. I mean, I can only speak to the through hiking experience. I mean, backpacking shorter trips, I don't feel like you get to know yourself as well. I mean, there's a certain, something like 5 months compared to 3 days. You're going a lot,
little different.
Yeah, you're going a lot deeper into that cave. Yeah. And I think what a lot of people find is just unresolved trauma or questioning or whatever whenever they're out in those spaces with so much time to think. And it just kind of provides a deeper view into your own humanity and purpose. And so I think, it can be very isolating in those times, especially with the thru hike. If someone's hiking alone for a majority of it, not having a community to rely on, I think you as a company taking that stance, and them knowing that there's allyship, even, if they have a cloud gear bag and they look at it, they know that they're supported. And I think as far as a motivator or kind of an uplifting thing, it's good to have some piece that shows you like, oh, today was really hard, but then I pulled out my cloud gear bag and I thought of their mission statement, and I know that I'm supported by someone out there. And so I think that's really cool. Can we talk kind of about negativity from that aspect as well? I mean, it's Sure. unfortunate that we have to say that that's a bold and brave stance to take at all in society. And I think especially like we established kind of the old guard of backpacking.
Yeah. And so to be fair, we haven't had as much negativity as I expected from it, which has been nice to see. I'm sure there are some people that choose not to buy from us because of it. The good thing for us is, we're not concerned necessarily about the profit that we're making. So, it wasn't really a question for us. We didn't have to stop and think, is this going to impact our ability to feed our family if we take this stance? It was, we're going to take this stance, and if it means our business fails, then our business fails. That's okay. And it's a benefit that we have, really, fortunate for us that we don't need this as a primary source of income. I know that can be a lot more difficult for other businesses. And I think we should be incredibly impressed when bigger companies take some of those same stances, because that is you're affecting your ability to continue to employ your staff and to continue to help your staff continue to work and make an income. So for larger businesses to take those stances, it's a little bigger of a question of, can we really do this and still be successful? And I think, more and more what we're seeing is, as companies are taking those stances, that we're actually shifting it a little bit to where now companies are starting to have to think, can I afford not to take this stance? And I think that's great, because if we shift it from, that is something that is, brave to take the stance that you're going to support the LGBTQ community and you're going to support diversity, from that being brave to, you really have to be brave to say you're not going to do that. That's how our industry gets better. And that's how, as a society, we continue to improve, I think.
Yeah, for sure. So you mentioned four people earlier. So you and your wife is only two. Were you referring to your kids whenever you're talking about that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Nice.
We put them to work.
Okay.
We have an 11 and a 14-year-old,
Oh, nice.
two daughters. And one of them is a lot more into the outdoors than the other. The other one doesn't particularly like dirt or bugs. But both of them have really enjoyed being a part of the company. We've started to let them do a little bit of the sewing on some of the things that it doesn't matter exactly how it looks. We let them do some of the taping. They do a lot of the trimming of the threads and stuff on the bags and packing and shipping and things like that. So they get involved. And it's cool to see how excited they are by it. They go tell their friends about being, their jobs at Cloud Gear. We gave them very impressive titles, vice president of packaging and shipping and things like that. So they really enjoy it.
Yeah, that's good for a resume for the 14-year-old whenever she's ready to go into the real world, to have 4 years as vice president. Can we talk about scaling of that workforce at all? Is that something that you guys consider, or is it something that you're interested in at all? Or are you just trying to keep it small and within the family?
Right now, we've very purposefully made the decision not to. So we don't intend to scale to the point where we would need to hire outside help. I think if we found the right person who wanted to be involved, that we wanted to give an opportunity to, that we might scale for a reason like that, but not just to make the business grow. So there's some, when we meet people, especially locally, who are into backpacking or really into design, we talk to them about what we do. And I think if we find someone who is really looking for an opportunity to learn some of those skills and to get involved in something, that we might be open to expanding in that way. But yeah, not just for profit's sake, or not just for additional sales. I don't think it would be worth it to us.
I think that's good. I think it's a unique perspective to be intentional with your scale in that way and being content with where you're currently at, which is refreshing to me because I come from a sales background specific to roofing and construction. And if a hailstorm hits, it's very much a feeding frenzy and stockpiling as many jobs as you can, even if you're not really able to handle that workload. It's nice hearing about businesses that have an intentional slow scale just so they don't have to get overwhelmed or feel like the kernel's got to pop. So
we actually have put some very purposeful effort into teaching other people how to do printing on Dyneema. So we've worked with the Space Bear Bags team and also Brave Ultralight, based out of Canada, and really help them understand how to effectively print on Dyneema so that they can expand their own offerings and send some business their way, so that when things get a bit overwhelming to us, we can offload a bit, and when people are looking for big orders of things that are just not really in our wheelhouse, we can send over to other people that have some of the same skills that we do.
Yeah, so how much of your budget do you place into marketing versus research and development versus production? Can you kind of talk about that spread for me?
We've never spent a penny on marketing. We thought about it early on, just because, again, we had some very expensive equipment that we were trying to recover some of the cost of. But within a month or two, things were taking off to the point where we were actually more concerned about things growing too quickly and not being able to keep up with the demand. So
Hmm.
you might actually notice if you follow us on Instagram, we go for months at a time without actually posting anything when things get too busy, just to kind of slow down the number of orders that we get brought in. Um, we find that if we post regularly, we get 10 15 orders a week, and if we don't post regularly, then we get 2 or 3 orders a week. So we
Yeah.
actually are pretty good at managing whether or not we have orders coming in. So that's been very intentional for us as well, to really slow things down when we're getting too busy, or when we have other big things going on family trips and vacations, going backpacking for a weekend. But we haven't really spent, like I said, anything on marketing. Research and development is something that we just do mostly. How it ends up turning out is we're doing things for fun.
Hmm.
So we think it would be interesting to make a gift for a friend or something like that. One of the things that we're working on today, let's see. Oh, actually, I have one up here. I'll show it to you. So this is, make sure you don't tell anybody about this before Christmas. So
Okay.
this is something we call a fire sack. And the fire sack is something that we're making for some friends for Christmas. So taking that and one of our little mini Yodas with a ferro rod connected into it and a striker, and a few of these fire plugs, throw them all in the sack together and send it off to people for Christmas. and
Nice.
often what happens is we start to make something because we want it, or because
Hmm.
we want to give it to somebody, and then we start thinking, oh, maybe people would like that.
Yeah.
We do designs for people, and then it's sometimes we find the design is something that we really like, and so we'll make that one of our standard designs. But it's usually pretty organic like that, the way that we come up with anything that we're doing. um, Requests from people, hey, could you make something like this? Sure, we can do that. If it sounds like something that's interesting, that we think we're capable of, or might be a fun thing to learn how to do, we'll often go off and do that.
Yeah, I actually contacted you guys while I was on the PCT to collaborate on a fanny pack. We, went back and forth with design, and it didn't quite work out.
I wish I had one of the samples that we made, so you could see what a disaster it was. But those have been destroyed, never to be
Oh, I
seen
got
again.
you. Well,
So
it's
someday we're going to get back to it and try it again,
yeah,
because it seems like it'd be fun. But yeah,
yeah.
we that was a little beyond our skill level.
Well, I think it's good that you even, you could have just told me no and kept doing what you were doing, but you said that sounds interesting and you at least attempted it. And I think that just shows, kind of more of the community support and the organic flow that you guys have had to your business. So if it's sounds like a good idea, you at least give it an attempt. And if it wasn't executed now, it's something that could be potential in the future. So I appreciate you guys even trying at least. I felt a little bothersome with my continuous follow-ups, but I was excited
Uh,
to know what the
Not at
progress
all.
was.
We were having fun trying it out. We've
That's
done that
good.
with quite a few things, actually. So we get people, just because we mention custom a lot, I guess people think of us as a potential for custom things, and we do a lot of custom sizes. People will reach out to us sometimes and say, I want a roll top dry bag, but I don't want the Velcro. Sure, we can do it without the Velcro. We can put a snap in if you want. We can
Yeah.
leave it just completely empty. We get a lot of custom size requests, but people want the bear bags without a reflective strip or 2 reflective strips or whatever. And since we make everything kind of as it gets ordered, it's pretty easy for us to do custom things like that.
Do you guys keep anything on hand, or is it all made to order?
Very, very little. So for things like we make a first aid bag that seems to be pretty popular. People order pretty often, and we usually
Is it
keep a couple of those around.
is it the one behind you?
It is, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
actually,
Yeah. Tell me
yeah.
tell me about these things behind you.
Sure. This is kind of it's a bit our idea board more than anything else, but these are actually things that we currently sell a lot of, mostly through Garage Grown Gear. So if you go to their website, you'll see that these 2 different styles of bear bags are the 2 that they offer there. One is called Sunset and Stars, which is actually a picture that I took on the Appalachian Trail, gosh, probably 7 or 8 years ago now. And then the other is the always popular Pride bag that we have. And then we sell rucksacks too. So these are the rucksacks that we sell. We have a few different designs. The favorite seems to be the one that we call Instructions, that has a little set of slightly funny instructions on the back about how to use a rucksack to hang a bear bag. And then the first aid bag is incredibly popular. And we sell, oddly, a lot of those in Europe. So we sell probably a good 7 or 8 a month that go out to Europe. So people must be a little more interested in a designated first aid kit in Europe.
Can you tell me about how you guys have been able to determine how much production workload you can have? Do you say, okay, we've got 20 this week, we can handle that? Or, do you have it kind of lined up to where you understand what your production capabilities are? You know how to slow down the acquirement or accruement of orders, but what about turning those orders over?
Yeah, we have actually, and this is mostly me, I have spreadsheets for everything. So I've tracked all sorts of different aspects of the way that we make the bags, trying to be more efficient, largely just so we're not spending more time than we need to on it. Depending on how many softball tournaments we have on the weekend for the 11-year-old and how much math homework the 14-year-old has, I would say we can usually do around 40 to 50 bags in a week pretty easily.
Wow.
And if we need to ramp that up to 100, we can do that. It just means not a lot of extra time to go out and have dinner with friends and stuff that week. So 50 bags a week is kind of where we try to keep things, just because that's not a ton of extra time for us and is sort of reasonable for our normal schedules. We've found actually, some really good ways to make sure that we're saving time in this. One of the ways is most of our bags are a standard size. And so we cut hundreds of bags at a time. So we have a Saturday cutting day where we spend 3 or 4 hours out in the custom cutting table that we had built out in the garage. And we will just cut rolls and rolls of fabric into the sizes that most of our bags are going to be. And that usually lasts us for a month or two, all the stuff that we cut over on one Saturday. And then when we're doing bulk orders for places like Garage Grown Gear, we'll print all the bags, and then the next day we'll sew on all the labels on the bags, and then we'll clip on the Velcro and the tabs on them, and then we'll sew it. So we kind of do them all in stages, just kind of making sure that we get as much efficiency out of that process as we can.
Well, Mark, that's it for the business side of things. Now I kind of want to move into your personal experience and challenges as a founder or co-founder. What's been the hardest barrier for you to break through?
It's interesting to say this, but nothing's been terribly difficult so far. It's really been wonderful to see that the community has embraced us. We've found people to work with, like Mercantile Ultralight in Europe, who's done a lot of bulk ordering from us. Wesley, who runs that, has just been a great friend to us from the very beginning. Lloyd over at Garage Grown Gear has been great to us from the very beginning. As we've had trouble with the things about our sewing machines that we haven't known how to fix and things like that, other makers across the industry have been more than happy to answer questions for us and to help us out. It's been a wonderful experience. I will say probably the most challenging thing that we've run into is that there's always seems to be a shortage of Dyneema. So when we first started selling, we ordered a little bit of fabric because the fabric is actually quite expensive. It's the biggest expense that we have out of all of the work that we do. And so we didn't buy a ton of it up front. And then suddenly there was none to be had in the industry. You couldn't buy bulk Dyneema for months. So we started buying much more bulk after that, once that started coming back. And now we're kind of back in the same boat again, where all of the fabric that we use for the thinner roll top drive sacks and for the stuff sacks, you actually can't get that fabric right now. It's all completely sold out across the industry, and we don't expect any to come in until probably January or February. So The supply chain issues have been interesting to deal with, but again, because if we don't have it to make, we just don't make it, and we just don't sell it, and we'll market is sold out if we need to. And that doesn't really affect us in a terrible way. So it hasn't been problematic for us, but it has been sort of a strange thing to deal with. I never really had to deal with supply chain in any sort of job I've ever had before. But the design work has been fun. The interaction with the customers has been fun. We haven't had any major issues across it, so it's worked out pretty well. Some of the initial legal stuff of setting up the LLC was a little hard to muddle through, figuring out how to get that into our year-end taxes, those things. Like we fortunately we have an accountant that we use anyway, and so we worked with him, and he was able to help us get through it. Our website is terrible. We haven't really put a lot of effort into it because we figure that the better it gets, the more orders we get, and we're still right at that place where we're pretty happy with it. So there's some things like that I think have been a little bit challenging for us, but haven't been really like blockers that prevented us from being successful.
Nice. How did you kind of brave that storm whenever there was a supply shortage? Is it something that you were concerned with, or you guys were kind of okay with because either you had enough product on hand to make it through, or as you said, if you don't get the orders, you just don't make it, and it's not your main gig, so it's not really a concern. Can you kind of tell me about that?
Fortunately, that's really been it. It's been, if we couldn't get the material, then, fortunately, we don't rely on this as a primary income because we just can't make those bags. There's really only two sources of Dyneema in the US that are really effective for what we need to do. And when both of them are out, and they've been out of two of the kinds of fabric that we use now for months, and I suspect they're going to run out of the final kind that we use pretty soon here, and so we just won't be able to order fabric until probably January, February. So there's not much we can do, and the good thing is we sort of recognize there's not much we can do about it, so we don't really stress about it. Again, that's a benefit of it not being a primary source of income. If this was a primary source of income, I think we would have had to have. Fortunately, we recognized this at the end of last year, and I think we could have made a major investment to make sure that we had enough fabric to get through the end of the year. But the industry really is up and down with the availability of Dyneema in particular. So it's a challenge of being really specific about the materials that you work with. And I think Dyneema is one of those rare things where if you're making stuff out of Dyneema, you can't really easily switch to something like Silpoly. It just doesn't have the same kind of capabilities. There are other fabrics that are somewhat similar, but just not really at the same level. So when you really focus your business around one unique thing like that, it can be very difficult. And I think if I were really looking at this as a primary source of income, I would have to be real careful about making it really too heavily reliant on a specific kind of fabric or any other kind of specific supply. So moving into X-Pack and making things like backpacks and things like that, along with the bags that we make, would be a good way to make sure that we were resilient to those kind of supply chain problems. But again, not something we've really had to deal with, fortunately.
Can you tell me what success looks like for Cloud Gear?
It's a good question. We're a year in, and we kicked this off really as a fun hobby and just to kind of recover some of the cost of the equipment that we had bought. So we hadn't really thought about that until fairly recently, and we've been talking more and more about it as a family. And it's something that we want to, at this point, success for us is really just being able to maintain this and maintain it at a level that we enjoy, and making sure that we're actually getting enjoyment out of it, and that we feel like we're doing something positive for the community, that we're doing something that gives back to the community, and making sure that there is a healthy relationship between those two things, that we're not putting so much effort in that it's taking away from what we can do as a family and what we can do with our family. So that's really kind of where we're measuring success today. Yeah. I'd love to kind of keep this running for a long time and keep it relatively at this level. And then at some point, if one of the kids or both of the kids wants to take it over and build it to something bigger or expand it beyond that, or if we meet somebody or have a friend or something that wants to take it on and build it into something more significant, then we might rethink what success looks like at that point. But so far, I think keeping it kind of what it is today seems like a big success for us, because we are at that place where we do enjoy it. It makes a little bit of money. It allows us to give back in a way that we wouldn't necessarily be able to otherwise. It makes us really feel connected to the community of people who are out doing backpacking, and it's a great community to be a part of.
Yeah. Okay, that was great input. Now it's time for hiker topics. We're going to get a little bit topical here. First up, you have a full-time job, a family, and a side gig. I would like your perspective for the audience on how you prioritize all of that and your time that you're able to make it out into the backcountry.
Yeah, it's I think most of us who are infatuated in the outdoors, the way I am, would like to figure out ways to spend more time in the outdoors. And it is often, especially as much work as we do on Instagram, seeing people constantly out in these wonderful places that we've been to and that we want to go back to can sometimes be difficult, because it really distracts you from the things that you're doing day to day. We're very intentional about the way we live and the way we think about what we want to do. Really clear goals around what we want for our family and what kind of time we want to spend with our kids. So it's not as difficult for us to really understand how to do that. I spend a lot more time out backpacking than any of the rest of the family, although I do love to take my 11-year-old with me. But we're really intentional about the amount of time that we spend separate, and really getting value out of the time that we spend separately, because that's important in a relationship. It's important with a family for people to actually have time to themselves, to have time with their friends, as much as it is times with their family as well. And so being very intentional about it is the best way that I've found to do that. There's not a hard and fast rule. Sometimes, the relationships at home need more work, and sometimes the relationships at home need you to be away more. And so really being aware and being mindful of those things and being intentional about how you deal with it is the way that I handle it. I do get to go backpacking probably 3 or 4 times a year these days, not for long trips, usually for 3 or 4 days. We go up to Arkansas around Eagle Rock Loop pretty regularly, down to Big Bend. Big Bend is one of my favorite places in the US. And then we have a group of us that have been meeting up on the Appalachian Trail once a year for about the last, 12 years now. We did miss last year because of the pandemic, but it's been every other year since then. And so I still fly back to North Carolina, where we're originally from, and meet friends and go out backpacking on the Appalachian Trail once a year too. It's pretty nice.
So what brought you guys to DFW?
It was work. Yep, my job. They offered me an opportunity I couldn't refuse to come move to Texas and take over a team here.
How's that been? For those of you that don't know, North Texas is about as flat as you can get. A lot of highways, a lot of not the outdoors. So how has that been for you as someone that's enjoys your time out so much?
It's been okay. So I grew up in North Carolina, but I grew up in Raleigh, so it was pretty urban. Okay. I spent about 5 years living in New York City as well. So I'm very used to urban living and very used to outdoors being an escape on a rare occasion, more so than something that I'm in day out. So it hasn't been so bad here. It's been nice because I've not had a lot of opportunity to really get outdoors in the Midwest when I was younger and living on the East Coast. So actually living here has given me a lot more opportunity to go and experience some of the things that I've wanted to. Spend a lot more time in Palo Duro Canyon, which isn't, in Texas terms, is not too far away from here. It's only 6.5 hours, Yeah. Yeah. So it's been nice. I've liked it here. It's been a great opportunity for me career-wise. And then, of course, you live in a place long enough and it becomes home. You meet friends and you just get used to where you're living. So it's been nice.
Okay. Would you rather have lunch in a restaurant with a broken bathroom, or would you rather have lunch at a shelter with a privy?
Oh, lunch at a shelter, of course.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. My 11-year-old and she and I talk about this a lot. How every food, no matter what it is, tastes better when you eat it outside. And I don't know why that is, but it's absolutely the truth. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, I think you get to be immersed in the flavor. There's no like painted walls or fluorescent lighting or shuffling of people coming in and out. You just get to kind of be in the moment with that food and that flavor and stare off into the distance.
I get to travel a lot with my day job, and I find that anytime you're in a place that is unfamiliar, somehow food is better. And so, being in India or being in Singapore or Hong Kong, and just being surrounded by things that are so wildly unfamiliar to you, somehow the food just is better. It's so fascinating the way that works. But yeah, it's great.
That's awesome.
Okay, tent, tarp, cowboy camp, or hammock.
Getting to the age where sleeping in a tent on my still probably overly ultralight pad is getting more and more difficult. And I love my hammock. I have that hammock UL2. It is just wonderful. It's just such a great night's sleep. I think a lot of times I would prefer that over to my own bed at home.
Nice. Cold soak, cooked food, or dry food?
Usually cooked food, but cooked food that was dried. So
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha.
yeah. I do like the ease of pouring some boiling water into a sack and letting it soak for a little while. I've had some really good cold soak stuff. Food for the Soul makes some really, really fantastic cold soak, sides and meals and things like that. But especially when it's a little colder at night, some nice warm food is fantastic. My wife and I are both vegan, and so the food options for backpacking have gotten so much better for vegetarians and vegans over the past 3 or 4 years. It is absolutely incredible compared to, it used to just be like dehydrated beans and instant rice was pretty much as best you were going to get, to now, like, it's just incredible what them and Food for the Soul is some of my favorite. But some of the stuff that Good to Go makes, and some Nomad Nutrition is another one that I get a lot of. Just incredible the options that are available now over the past few years.
Yeah, there's a pretty large surge in dietary offerings for trail meals. Next question is, do you prefer a mountain ridge or a desert floor?
I love both. I need both on some level. And so like, that's one of the things I love about Big Bend is you can kind of get both. So you can spend a couple of nights down in the desert, in the valley, and just absolutely surrounded by barren nothingness. And there's something really cool about that. And then the next day you can be up on the South Rim overlooking off of a mountain ridge, just the incredible views that you have from up there. So I love that about Big Bend. Growing up as a kid, spent so much time on the AT that the AT is really, that is the thing that I connect myself most to. And when I go there, I feel like I'm home in a way that I don't in most other places. But I do love that desert floor now and then. It's just wonderful.
And what's one hiker pro tip you could give anybody?
Best I can say is make sure your shoes fit.
Yeah, that's a great one.
That's probably the best one I have, because I've many times had it feel like I was going to have a toe fall off. And now I've gotten to the point where I can tell if a hiking shoe or a boot is going to fit well when I first put it on, rather than waiting 3 days into a hike to find out that it's not fitting well.
Nice.
And any last words or comments? Was there anything that you think we might have missed that you'd like to go over before we leave?
The only other thing I would add there is when you're getting started with a business, especially in the outdoor community, don't be afraid to ask, and I mean literally ask anything.
Yeah.
People will reach out to us and say, where do you get your supplies? We'll tell them. How do you make Dyneema tape? We'll tell them. We'll send them videos of making it, so it's easier for them to do it. And largely we've seen that same kind of response from everyone else that we've interacted with. So if you want to get into doing something like this and you don't know how to get started, or you don't know, how to do some specific aspect of the thing you want to produce, just ask someone else that does it. Some people might say no, and say, they're trying to protect trade secrets and things like that, but I guarantee you'll find someone who will be willing to help you. Getting diversity in the outdoors is step one. And then, I mean, there's some gatekeeping around through hiking anyway.
Yeah, for sure.
But certainly, like, if you get people just excited about being in the outdoors, some of that will naturally come.
Yeah.
I grew up in the South, and I grew up around racism, and even somewhat in my own family. And then when I was 12, my parents adopted my little brother, who was from Peru. And so it was really interesting to see kind of the reaction of the people around us, and even within our own family. Wow. Who were, there's this racism that's there, and then all of a sudden, oh wait, but like, he's Hispanic and he's part of your family. What do we do? And now, I have a brother-in-law who is Vietnamese, and a sister-in-law who is half Black, and nieces on both sides that are, multiracial. And it's so interesting now to see, like, how, just the microcosm of the South that is my family has become so multicultural, and like, people are really wrestling with racism in a real way. And I think that's great that, people are really being confronted with it, that it's not just slowly disappearing, because I don't think it will slowly disappear. I think it has to be this like active wrestling with it, active dealing with it. And I think that's happening with a lot of the sort of pieces of diversity that we're dealing with as a society. And I love seeing it. I love trying to be a part of it. I love trying to drive some of those conversations. And, I think the outdoors is a great way to do that, because how can you gatekeep the outdoors? It's the outdoors. Like there shouldn't be gates at all. And so, like, really encouraging that diversity in that space. I think on some level, in my mind, that should be the intro that people get to diversity, is these shared spaces. Because, when you go to the restaurants you go to in your town, you go to your schools and your churches and your things like that, they're in this area that you've built for yourself, and that your group has built for itself. And so you're never going to get that kind of diversity that you would get by building these shared spaces like the outdoors, like the Appalachian Trail, like the PCT, like places like Big Bend, where that diversity is something that you don't control. And it's going to be a place where I think we really have an opportunity as a society to build these experiences where people get to interact with each other. And the more you interact with people who are different from you, the more people don't seem all that different. And so I love that aspect of the outdoors. And that's why I'm so excited about these kind of programs, because these are the foundation of, I think, changing the rest of the society that we have around us.
Thank you for joining me in this installment of the Outdoor Entrepreneur Series. Our guest next week is going to be Lloyd Vogel, co-founder of Garage Grown Gear. Garage Grown Gear is an online marketplace that specializes in cottage brands. So we will get to know some of the behind the scenes aspect of that. There's going to be a new guest every Monday. If you check my Instagram, Some Dude Walking, just at Some Dude Walking, I have the full schedule for the next 8 weeks. This is going to be a weekly series that I intend on doing, with new episodes released every Monday. And yeah, that's it. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you made it this far, please like, comment, subscribe. If you are a business owner or you know of one that you would like to recommend, you can email me at somedudewalking@gmail.com. I'll put it down in the link in the description, as well as Cloud Gear's website and social media stuff. So thank you for tuning in. I hope that it was informative and informational, and I'm very excited to keep this new series going.